All right, are the board members back? See Tom, Jess.
I'm here, Sarah.
Sarah, okay. Do we have Dave? Member Merman, are you back? Tom Frank, are you and your team here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Tom, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. I can't see you though. Turn on your camera.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, I see you now. All right, and Ms. Mulligan, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we can go back on the record.
You're on the record at 12:17.
Thank you. Kristen, did you have something?
I'll just note for the court reporter, I see that we have North Country in a conference room. Please announce who you are when you're speaking so the court reporter knows who to assign what comment.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, so Mr. Frank, thanks for being here and having your team ready. I'll have our counsel, Julia Korelman, read the oath. Please, everyone, state your name and affirm after she reads it. And as Kristen mentioned, it'll be very helpful for the transcript if when you speak, you identify yourself so the court reporter can properly transcribe the record. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Chair Foster. All right, I will read the oath. Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Tom Frank, I do.
Anita Flagg, I do.
Tracy Paul, I do.
Denise Carter, I do.
Dan Bennett, I do.
Steve Wright, I do.
Greg Walker, I do.
Great, thank you all. Mr. Frank, if you have any opening comments or a presentation that you'd like the board to receive, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Foster, and thank you, members of the Green Mountain Care Board, for allowing North Country to present our 2027 budget. I'd like to introduce the members of the team. Each team will have some comments to make during this presentation. I am Tom Frank. I am the president and CEO and have been here since in this role since April of 2023. Immediately to my left is our Chief Financial Officer, Anita Flagg. Next to Anita is our Chief Operating Officer, Tracy Paul. To the left of Tracy is Denise Carter, our Chief Nursing Officer. Immediately to my right is Dr. Greg Walker. Dr. Walker is the president of our med staff, medical director of anesthesia, and medical director of our OR. Steve Wright is next to Dr. Walker. He is the executive director at J. Peak. He's also the vice chair of our board and one of our longest serving board members. And then finally, lastly, Dan Bennett. Dan is a senior director here in the organization. Dan's been brought on to help us with our implementation of EPIC. In addition to that, Dan serves as the project manager, which is a grant funded position for regionalization with NVRH. So North Country Hospital is located in Newport, Vermont. Newport, Vermont is part of what we call the Northeast Kingdom. It's an area of the state that consists of 2,000 square miles. We are a critical access hospital, and as a critical access hospital, we serve the oldest, sickest, and poorest in the state of Vermont. We have the most challenging payer mix from a reimbursement perspective in that our payer mix exceeds for Medicare and Medicaid well in advance of 70%. As a critical access hospital, we are the only critical access hospital in the state of Vermont that fully qualifies federally for that status. North Country Hospital is exactly why critical access designation was created, again, because of our rural nature, our distance to other hospitals, and the population that we take care of. We are a primary care focused organization. We provide 99% of the primary care to our catchment area. That catchment area consists of 30,000 individuals. Over the last several years, unfortunately, we have lost most of our clinical or specialty areas. We have lost urology, neurology, and pulmonology. As the ruralist hospital, as the poorest hospital, or from the community perspective, many of our folks here in the community travel an hour to an hour and a half just to get to our hospital. Many of our patients don't even have vehicles, and who do often can't afford to travel. So as you can tell, again, we are why critical access was created. When I arrived back at North Country Hospital in April of 23, it was not the same hospital that I had left 3 years before. We had gone through some serious issues that resulted in significant reduction in morale. Our reputation in the community was not good. We only had one member left in our quality department. We were no longer the employee of choice. We were losing patients left and right. We had made a mistake on the EMR that had been chosen and went through an absolutely atrocious implementation. We knew that we needed to attack those areas before we could even begin to take a look at the finances. I will say that in 2021, our organization lost $9 million from operations. In 22, we lost $8 million. And in 23, we're able to mitigate that loss to $2 million. So the first thing we needed to do was build a foundation, and that foundation included morale, quality, and employee of choice. We did that by investing in our staff, by having an open policy where there were no secrets. We shared the good, the bad, and the ugly with all of our staff. We continue to invest in our staff. In this budget, in 2027, for the 7th year in a row, we have not passed any increase in healthcare costs off to our staff. We have found ways to mitigate. Our physicians will receive a 2% increase as of October 1. Our staff will receive a 3% increase as of April 1. Our leadership or directors will receive 2% as of April 1. And our vice presidents this year will receive 0. We have begun to turn that around. We have really focused hard on all of the bases to build that foundation. In our most recent employee survey, our physicians and advanced practice providers scored greater than the 90th percentile through Press Ganey, some of the highest scores in the country. No longer are our staff saying that they are underpaid or our benefits are out of line. We're focused on quality. Quality is job one for our organization. We have completely rebuilt our quality department. There isn't a meeting where we go to or don't discuss quality. We have a quality committee where every department in this organization needs to present annually, at least annually, the quality improvement projects that they have going on in those areas. Since 2023, I'm very proud to say that as employer of choice, 60 former employees have returned back to our organization in various roles. We're very proud of that. EMR, our electronic medical record, has been a disaster from day one. We've lost millions and millions of dollars because of that implementation and because of that program. So in order to start a financial turnaround, once the foundation was built, we needed to look at the EMR. And what we needed to do was bring in an external billing company to help bill and collect for our hospital. They have proprietary software that they put on top of our EMR. Even they can't bill through our EMR because they're unable to do it as well. That has stabilized the dollars coming in the door, which was huge. And then we can tackle everything else associated with that. Over the past 4 budgets, we have submitted expense growth on average of 0.11%. Our average increase for fees has been 1.67%. Unfortunately, those decisions we needed to make resulted in some eliminating of positions. Over the last 4 years, we have eliminated 16 middle and upper management positions, and we made the hard decision to eliminate our joint knee and hip joint replacement program. It's been very difficult in order to achieve this, but our organization is on board. Everyone sings the same song. Our mantra here in our hospital is do more with less. We have many, many programs that we have in place to control expense and enhance the ability for patients to get in the door through an access perspective. Speaking of budget guidance, for the last 4 budgets, we have met or exceeded budget guidance. This year, the budget guidance was a 1% reduction in commercial reimbursement. Our budget presents a 1.2% reduction in commercial reimbursement. And as I said, when you eliminate or take away our one-time OCHIN $4 million expense item, our expense growth budget to budget this year is 0.%. So we continue to do what we believe is right for the community, what's right for the state, and what's right for cost containment in the state of Vermont with respect to healthcare. Regionalization. As you know, regionalization is an AHS program that we are actively participating in with our neighbors to the south, NVRH. This is a multi-year program. This is not a quick fix. This is not a quick reduction in expense or improvement in revenue enhancement or access, but we are working diligently to make that happen. We have a shared pharmacy director. We have Kaufman Hall that has come in and helped lead sessions on how we could work closer together, and there are some thoughts in process that we will continue to work through. We're working very hard on that. We've had an LLC with NVRH for years, and we continue hopefully in the future to be able to use that in other ways. Going back to our EMR, we are in the process of implementing Epic through a company called OCHIN. 85% of our patients are referred to Epic hospitals. Our providers are trained on Epic. Our nurses are trained on Epic. Once we are on Epic, we'll be able to see and follow our patients in any of the academic medical centers. That includes UVM, Dartmouth, Mass General, what have you. It is expensive. The original outlay is $9 million. We've spent $4.5 million this year, and we have $4 million that we have to put into next year. That's coming out of our cash reserves. Once that is accomplished, we believe that it has multiple benefits, some of which I've already described, but you're going to also hear about telehealth. One of the inhibitors to telehealth with the academics is the need for physicians in those other institutions to learn multiple systems. That's going to go away. We'll all be on basically one system. The cost of Epic on an annual basis is $2.5 million. Currently, we're paying $1.8 million for our current EMR, plus an additional $2 million for the outside billing company. Over the next couple of years, we are going to eliminate the need for that outside billing company. And so we anticipate savings in excess of $1 million once we're up and running on Epic. State-sponsored programs. We are not shy about participating in programs that look to rein in the cost of healthcare. North Country has participated in everything from OneCare to working toward the AHEAD model to this past year joining a global budget Medicaid program. One of only a few hospitals in the state that decided to do that. And it was working fantastic. A set amount of money for Medicaid every single month. We looked at shadow claims and we were within $60,000 of fee-for-service. Unfortunately, as you know, the feds came in and shut that program down. So now we're back to fee-for-service when it comes to Medicaid. I do want to talk about our relationship with Blue Cross. For the first time in the 10 years I've been associated with this hospital, Blue Cross has reached out for a conversation on contract negotiation. It's been a very fruitful experience thus far. One of the things that I have mentioned in the past when it came to our charge master is we hadn't seen an increase on professional charges through a fee schedule in 8 years. This year, as part of their proposal, they proposed to increase reimbursement on professional. Blue Cross Blue Shield provided us a cost estimate or what our total costs are. Dan, would you bring those up, please? So this information was provided by Blue Cross Blue Shield on all of the billing in the state of Vermont. So when you look at our percent of Medicare to inpatient, North Country is at 220%. That's less than 5 other hospitals in the state of Vermont, including a PPS hospital. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, our outpatient charges are at 536% of Medicare. That's high, but considering our payer mix, where we're located, and critical access, it's still less than 3 other hospitals in the state of Vermont. Now, we recognize that our laboratory and our radiology charges are high. We know that. But as Blue Cross said to us, you have some ungodly low charges as well. So our goal is working with Blue Cross and an external company to help us realign our charge master to bring down the radiology and lab charges to make it more affordable for our community. But that does mean other charges may need to rise to stay in the area of 500% on the outpatient side. We attempted to start this work last year with the charge master, but as I've had a conversation with Chair Foster last year about this, the Biden budget guidance last year for Blue Cross is no individual charge could move up or down greater than the approved fee increase for the hospital. Our approved fee increase last year was 0.5%. So working with Blue Cross, the decision was made to really begin that work this year. So at this point, I'd like to turn this over to Anita to talk some specifics about our finances.
Good afternoon, Green Mountain Care Board, healthcare associates, and community supporters. Our budget for fiscal year 27 tells a story of resilience, hard work, and expense reductions. We've gone from an organization losing millions of dollars to an organization able to once again invest in equipment and technology to enhance our patient experience. We've done the hard work and it shows. And we've learned to do more with less. This year's budget exceeds all the guidelines set forth in the budget guidance if you exclude the $4 million for our Epic conversion. The benchmark for the commercial NPR growth in the guidance was 1%. And per the staff analysis, this includes self-pay, and NCH exceeded the benchmark with a negative 5%. The benchmark in guidance for commercial rate request was a negative 1%, and NCH exceeded that at negative 1.21%. In fiscal year 25, we met the guidance of 3.4%. And in fiscal year 26, the guidance was 3%, and our requested and improved increase was a 0.5%. The expense growth benchmark per guidance this year was 2.4%. NCH, with the exclusion of Epic, is a negative 0.11%. And when we exclude the provider tax and the depreciation, as well as the Epic, we're at a negative 0.16%. Epic is a one-time implementation fee of the $9 million, like Tom stated, and we're recognizing part of that in fiscal year 26 and the other part of it in fiscal year 27. It is an operating expense versus a capital expense because we do not own any part of the system. We are only having licensed access to utilize the system. We did confirm this with our auditors before we posted anything for fiscal year 26 to make sure that we were handling it correctly. Therefore, we're requesting that you exclude the Epic $4 million that's included in our budget from our operating expense growth. When the Green Mountain Care Board team was reviewing our fiscal year 25 actuals, there were some questions around our NPR growth. And it was in regards to the cost report settlement dollars that were received. In fiscal year 24 and 25, we worked with an outside consultant to maximize prior year cost reports. This consultant identified several areas where we could amend or reopen our cost reports from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 23. In fiscal year 25, Medicare reimbursed us for the amended cost report years of fiscal year 21, 22, and 23. And that is what caused our overage in the NPR. When you amend or reopen a cost report and you receive a settlement, it can only be recognized in the year in which it is received. Our fiscal year 27 budget has a negative operating margin of 3.5 million. However, if we were not investing in Epic, we would have an operating margin of 500,000. We've come a long way from our losses. As Tom stated, a loss of 9.3 million to a fiscal year 27 operating margin of 500,000 without the Epic. So our budget does tell a story. It tells us a success story. We were here yesterday, we're here today, and we will be here tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Tracy?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. I've done this a few times. I'm here to talk about some of the changes in our medical group from budget to budget or projected to budget. As Tom mentioned earlier, North Country continues to be a primary care focused organization. There's few options, so the majority of our patients go to our primary cares here. We have 2 primary care locations, one that's on our campus here at the hospital and one in Barton that's 25 minutes down the highway. We're budgeting over 40,000 visits for next year between the 2 practices, and we are anticipating about 1,100 new patients by the end of this fiscal year added to our primary cares, split basically evenly between the 2 of them. We determined in regards to the Newport practice, we determined through patient and provider feedback that we needed more acute access for our patients in our primary care. We were fortunate to hire an experienced physician assistant in May of 2026. Seeing the patients in our practice has a lot of benefits for our patients. The patient's past medical history is available, and as well as the current visit being documented within the system. It frees up spaces for our other providers to see more acutely ill patients and some of their chronic patients. It helps to decrease unnecessary ED visits, which by creating the timely access, which helps the patient and the cost from the system. The patients go to the same place for their care. They go to the same building, they see the familiar faces, they're comfortable in where they're receiving their care. The patient's provider is usually somewhere in the clinic a lot of the time for a consult if absolutely necessary. It's just a better experience all around for our patients and for the continuity of care to take care of them for the long haul. And it's very cost effective for the system. Also, in regards to the Newport Clinic, in the budget next year, we have 6 months of a locum in the revenue and the expense. We have 2 vacant physician positions that became vacant in 2025, and we've been staffing them with locums for the last year. We have been recruiting hard since March of 25 to replace the physician positions. I am very happy to report that we're very close to signing 2 new physicians, both whom are experienced and will be able to step in and take care of the panel of patients that the relocation of our other physicians left open that we've been staffing with locums. This will be a huge patient satisfier, as you can expect, for people. At the Barton Clinic down the road, we are very fortunate to have one of our physicians who used to work for us to return. We had been staffing that clinic also with locum providers, which has its own set of challenges. The staff, the patients, everybody's super excited that this physician is back, and that makes our Barton Clinic fully staffed. Between the 2 primary care practices, not including the physicians we are hiring and recruiting, we have 7 physicians and 10 advanced practice providers. We also have a very robust pediatrics practice. We are fortunately staffed with 4 pediatricians and 1 nurse practitioner. They see about 11,000 patients in a year. And they have a strong relationship with UVM and Dartmouth through their teleneonatal intensive care services. Going on to some changes in the specialty services. As Tom mentioned earlier, we've had a relationship with NVRH since 2011 with an LLC in St. Johnsbury. That was created originally to be able to share providers with both of our communities. The was home to sleep and pulmonary medicine until 2022. But since then, we've only had sleep medicine in this location. So this year, NVRH and ourselves made the decision to move 100% of those sleep services up to North Country Hospital, where we have our own sleep program. This was done due to financial reasons and also the challenges of trying to staff both clinics. The consolidation of these two practices is no net new add of revenue or expenses to the overall healthcare system. It's a change of location in the service. Also this year, our primary care, pediatric, and OBGYN practices are all rural health clinics, which means they receive enhanced reimbursement for office visits. Due to the change in the rules for RHCs and the fact that the two practices are located in the same building, we were able to add orthopedics medicine to our OBGYN rural health clinic. Now, all these practices will be reimbursed the same, and it does not have any impact on commercial rates. One other thing to speak to is the potential service line changes that are not reflected in the budget for next year. We have been working with UVM over the past year to provide telehealth services here. Like I mentioned before, we haven't had those since 2022. The patient would come to the hospital for their visit, and that would eliminate any of the technical or connectivity issues that can be a problem here in the Northeast Kingdom. It'll be a huge benefit, again, for our patients, like Tom had mentioned, that have transportation challenges. The pulmonology telehealth will add to our telehealth services that we have for neuro, for psychology, and the neonatal, as I mentioned before. And the largest barrier that there's been, again, as Tom has mentioned, is having the different electronic medical records. Our investment in Epic will take away that barrier and will no longer exist in April of 2027. We look forward to being on the same system with our tertiaries and be able to explore more opportunities for telehealth. And one more thing, we're happy to report we were awarded a rural health transformation grant for the purpose of comprehensive telehealth program. So it fits in perfect to our plans. Basically, this grant's going to be used for laptops, telehealth carts, workstations, tablets, all those things to help telehealth go more smoothly. It'll allow North Country Hospital to use this grant to implement advanced telehealth without using dollars we need for our other capital purchases. And it's perfect timing for setting up telehealth with pulmonology and to be looking forward to the future for more telehealth services. Thank you.
Tracy, I want to pass that on. Denise, mention your name, please.
Okay, thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Denise Carter, Chief Nursing Officer. I'm going to talk about recruitment and retention. Recruiting in the Northeast Kingdom continues to be a significant challenge. This year, through our scholarship program, we awarded 17 scholarships to students pursuing nursing or other healthcare careers. This will help us keep future candidates in the pipeline. Currently, we have 33 scholarship recipients working at North Country Hospital, so it's a very successful program. We value our community partnerships. We have a new partnership this year with the NEK Workforce Expansion Program and their Step Up to Healthcare Careers. This is a great program. It focuses on developing skills and increasing knowledge for healthcare careers outside of nursing. We have hosted tours. We provided shadowing opportunities for individuals interested in exploring these areas. We continue to have strong ties with our local high school. We provide a clinical rotation site for licensed nursing assistants, our LNA students, one for high school students and one for adults who are interested in healthcare. This program provides students with meaningful hands-on clinical experience in an acute care setting. When the recruiting struggles are very real, and we've had to be creative and develop grow our own programs so we could decrease the number of travelers, which is currently 17. When we had difficulty finding qualified medical assistants, our education department developed an MA program tailored specifically to meet the needs of our 2 primary care clinics and our 2 primary care locations in our clinics. When trying to secure travelers willing to commit and complete a 13-week contract for scrub techs in the operating room felt impossible, we made the decision to build a sustainable internal solution by creating our own program from the ground up. Last November, we began this journey with 4 candidates who were eager to learn. But we had no idea if this 9-month program would be successful. To date, 2 of our techs have completed the program, are independent and taking call, with the other 2 not far behind. This program has not only improved staffing, but it has improved morale in the OR. The OR staff have been very involved in developing the program and giving feedback. And I'm really proud of them for thinking outside the box and being creative to develop this curriculum. We have our ongoing partnership with Vermont State University for a dual position as clinical educator and clinical instructor. This role serves as an instructor for RN and PN students during clinicals and as an educator and preceptor for the first 4 to 6 weeks once the LPN and RN student graduates. This model has been successful in quickly building confidence because the student and preceptor have been together throughout their nursing school experience. Our nurse extern program was shut down during the pandemic, and we've recently revived it. This program is designed to bring nursing students into our organization during the summer months prior to their senior year. The goal of this program is to provide students with an understanding of clinical workflows and processes. So they're partnered with the nurse that they're with the whole shift. They start with report and they go throughout the day. So they learn organization, they learn prioritization, they get to know peers, they get to form those relationships with providers and physicians. And it really has helped to ease the transition from student to practicing nurse. Our new grad residency program continues to be successful. This year we have 4 nurses in the program, 1 for the ED, 2 for our OB maternal child unit, and 1 for our progressive care unit. Our residency program gives nurses the opportunity to apply to any open position, including specialty departments. And that's a unique opportunity that not all hospitals offer. They don't have to go through a year of training on the med-surg or inpatient unit before they go to a specialty unit. Successful completion of the 8-month program includes leading a project within their department that demonstrates meaningful improvement for patient outcomes. We also offer a specialized orientation designed for LPNs who are interested in transitioning into the acute care setting. This program works especially well for those who need to work and who are going on to school for their RN degree. We currently have 2 LPNs in orientation for our progressive care unit. For retention, we continue to invest in our current workforce by offering a clinical letter program for RNs and LPNs. This program runs from April to April and focuses on professional growth, community service, quality, and customer service. In addition, we have a student loan repayment program for RNs and LPNs pursuing undergrad degrees. These investments reflect our continued commitment to supporting professional growth, recognizing clinical excellence, and strengthening long-term retention within our nursing team. As Tom mentioned, we experienced changes in our quality department during the data collection timeframe for our star rating. Because of these changes, we knew we would take a hit for our star rating, but chose to participate anyway. We have implemented a comprehensive plan to strengthen oversight and to focus our efforts and resources on making positive improvements to patient outcomes. Earlier this year, we had a patient present to the emergency department in acute distress. After a thorough exam, the physician went to the patient, told him that she wanted him to transfer to a tertiary center for a more appropriate care and treatment. His response was, "This is my hospital. I'm not leaving." She again reiterated her concerns and that she wanted to transfer him. And again, he responded, "This is my community and my hospital. I don't want to be transferred. Make me comfort measures only and let me stay here." So we admitted him to our inpatient unit and monitored him very closely around the clock for several days until his condition stabilized. Once he returned to his baseline, he was able to be discharged back into the community. He refused to leave. That's why we're here, to care for our community and for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Dan?
Thank you. I'm Dan Bennett. As Tom had noted before, I'm working in a position that is grant funded for hospital transformation. I've been working with North Country and MBRH in that role. You heard comments earlier from MBRH on this process. And as luck would have it, we have the same things to say. It's going well. We have been working on ways to assess shared service opportunities between the two hospitals. We've engaged Kaufman Hall to help us with that work. Tom noted that we have a shared pharmacy director between the two hospitals, and that can serve as a blueprint for the sort of collaborations we're looking to do in the future. Our second goal that we have with MBRH is to expand the Accountable Community for Health program, NEK Prosper, to serve the entire county, and that process also is underway and doing well. Tom and Tracy talked about the two main initiatives that we have on hospital transformation here at North Country. Our transformation to Epic as our electronic health record, and also partnering with UVM on pulmonology telehealth programs. So those are well underway, and we think are going to help us with patient access and efficiency for years forward. I also want to address the Medicare cost share issue. I've been working on that as one of my projects here at North Country. So I'm going to provide some information, and much of this we did include in our follow-up to some questions the Care Board asked last week. About 90% of our Medicare patients receiving care at North Country have a supplemental coverage plan from either Medicaid or a commercial insurance company. So about 10% are Medicare only. For patients that do not have supplemental insurance, their patient responsibility after they've applied for and been awarded financial assistance, or they have fallen to bad debts, averages about $600,000 a year, or about 9% of charges. And this is an average over the last 3 years. Here at North Country, we've provided an average of $520,000 a year in financial assistance to Medicare patients who do not have a supplemental plan. We also maintain a rather robust financial navigator program here at North Country. This is the program whereby we assist patients to receive other benefits or to get other social service programs. Our navigators and our accounts receivable contractor at several points in the process offer financial assistance to our patients. We also have seen since most of the Medicare Advantage programs have left the state over the past several months, we have seen an uptick in Medicare patients applying for financial assistance. We've also seen an uptick in our navigators assisting patients to qualify for the Qualified Medicare Beneficiary, or QIMBY program, which is a program that provides funding to pay for patient responsibility on their behalf. We are also committed to transparency on this issue. We now have a direct link on the front page of our website for patients with a special Medicare statement. And this statement is similar to the one that you received from VAWS at the beginning of June in one of the hearings on the Medicare cost share. So that is now up on our website, and we are also working on other notifications to patients in the form of posters that will be up in our registration areas. Finally, I want to discuss, I'm sorry, I'm trying to bring our presentation back up. Give me just 1 second. I also want to discuss community benefit. As you may have seen, North Country provides a high percentage of community benefit in our community when compared to other hospitals. We're sharing some slides from a presentation from Forbes Mazars, which is the contractor we work with to prepare our 990 report. As you'll see here, as a percentage of total expense, North Country provides financial assistance at a higher rate than the average and median in the state of Vermont. In 24, we were 1.16%, which was significantly higher than the Vermont average. The same can be said for the Medicaid shortfall percentage. In 24, we were at 15.6%. Versus now a little over 9% on the median and average. I do want to note as well, there was a question to MVRH earlier about the Medicaid shortfall. I did go back and verify after your question to MVRH. This Medicaid shortfall is based on the cost. It's not based on charges. This is the actual shortfall when you compare the cost of providing this care to what we were reimbursed. We also have a high percentage when it comes to subsidized healthcare services. So these are those services for which we lose money on the services we provide. Again, this is more than double the state average and median in Vermont. And then finally, our total community benefit was about 24% in 2024. And again, much higher than the average and median across the state. So the IRS requires us to do this reporting in order to determine whether we are satisfying our not-for-profit status and tax-exempt status. And I think it's clear that North Country is not only meeting its mission, but it is earning its status as a not-for-profit hospital. Thank you.
Dr. Walker?
All right. So, yeah, Greg Walker, President of Medical Staff here in this country. I'm a native Vermonter, been around these parts for a long time. I graduated high school here. I went to undergrad at UVM, did my medical school at UVM. Went down to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for my internship and residency, then returned home to the Northeast Kingdom in 1995, and I've been here since, a little over 30 years. I'm an example of how our hospital continues to provide excellent medical care to the Northeast Kingdom. 20% of the almost 20% of the physicians on staff at our hospital grew up in this area, went to high schools around this area. It's got to be one of the highest percentages in the state. As everybody's aware, recruiting docs to Vermont is difficult. It's especially difficult to recruit docs to the Northeast Kingdom. We depend and we need our local youth to return to our community. Vermont has a problem of attracting youth back here. North Country Hospital gives our youth a pathway back to their community. That is huge. Unfortunately, over the past few years, the added pressures of meeting state regulatory and budgetary requirements for hospitals have made it even more difficult to recruit and retain physicians, especially here in the Northeast Kingdom. This is regardless of where the physician hails from. The pressures and expectations placed on physicians practicing in this remote corner of Vermont can be overwhelming. These pressures were a contributing factor to the recent suicide of one of our ER docs, Dr. Paul Newton. Losing a physician, especially to suicide, has a profound impact on a small hospital. Not only does the emotional trauma run deep, but the practical aspect of the void they leave is enormous. Some of our offices here at our hospital only have 1 or 2 physicians. When a physician leaves our hospital, it can have a prodigious implications on the care we can provide here for our community. On a more positive note, most of the docs here at North Country Hospital are happy to be here. As Tom, I think it was Tom mentioned, 90% of the docs working here are happy to be at North Country Hospital. They are happy with the working environment. Conclusion from an employee survey satisfaction that Tom puts out about every 18 months is a huge improvement since Tom took helm here at the hospital. This is a reflection of a cooperative environment. And this is a result of a medical staff and an administration aligned with the common goals of outstanding patient care and financial stability for our hospital. You know, bottom line, as a medical staff, we are a fiercely independent group. And we are equally as fierce and committed to providing excellent care to our patients here in the Northeast Kingdom. We're able to do this because of the support from Tom and his administrative team, the very supportive hospital board, support from the entire family here at North Country Hospital, and most importantly, a community that will stand behind its hospital through thick and thin. Thank you.
Mr. Wright.
Hi, my name's Steve Wright. I'm the president CEO at J Peak. I've been at J for 25 years. I've been in the Vermont ski industry for 35 years. I've been here at the board for at least a decade. I've sort of lost track. And while some of you may have read the headlines that J Peak had been in receivership and we steered the ship through receivership, I'll probably forever be known for being in charge of the hiring committee that brought Tom Frank back to the hospital here, you know, some years ago. That'll be on my resume forever, and we're proud of that here. And what I've said the last few years probably rings true now more than ever, as I've sat through several of these, as Tracy has, which is, you know, the importance of a healthy, vibrant and stable hospital for me at the mountain counts more than anything as it relates to keeping staff on board, of which I have about 2,000 staff members at JP, both full and part-time, keeping them on board, but attracting folks into the region. It comes before housing even, which obviously all of us know is you know, an issue here in the state of Vermont. It comes before education, because, you know, a vibrant hospital, a stable hospital is something that connects as a need for everybody that comes into the state, or as an issue for people staying in the state. And I have the good fortune in my position of being on, you know, a dozen boards here in the state of Vermont, ranging from you know, something, the Green Mountain Farm to School program, the NEK Collaborative. I'm the president and chair of the Vermont Ski Area Association, the Vermont Ski Museum, and I can't tell you how many times, you know, we get in our own way in some of these organizations because of the way that boards and operating systems are constructed. You know, we can't get out of our own way to create change at these you know, these organizations. And I have to say that, you know, the way, and to echo what Greg said, the way that Tom has built this system And I've been through a few different systems here, so I feel like I can put a flag in the ground and talk intelligently about this. The way that Tom has built this system between the board, between the senior leadership team, between the operating team and the docs, the way he has built that system, which is evidenced here in this room by the representatives that we have in this room talking before you today, but also in the way that we meet on a regular basis. The way that he has built that has allowed for that change in this hospital to become what was, as he referred to it to kick this meeting off, just short of a liability, and to turn it into what I would consider a magnet for me and for the community, to bring people into our community and to keep them here as a positive asset has been, I don't use this word lightly, has been remarkable. And I think that anybody in this hospital, and certainly anybody in this community, would back up what I said. And I have to say, those boards that I am a part of, it's not that I don't look forward to going to them once or twice a month. But this is the one board meeting that I actually look forward to coming to, not only because the people in the room are genuinely here to enact change and to create a positive system here, but I feel like on a meeting by meeting basis, we are moving the ball forward here. And I can't say that about a lot of places that I've been at. And the reason that I feel that way really does sit not only with the people in the room, but with what Tom has been able to accomplish. So I'll leave it at that.
So that's our presentation, folks. So we certainly welcome questions.
Thank you. Member Holmes?
Great, thanks, Chair Foster. It's a big year ahead for you all, as you've outlined, as you move from Cerner to Epic. And over the years of sitting on this board and watching not only North Country go through NEHR, implementation, but seeing many other hospitals go through NEHR implementation. Often the hospitals underestimate the cost of that implementation, and as well as the revenue impacts of the time, in that transition. So I know you've adjusted for April, May, and June some of the expected revenue that you're anticipating, but I wonder if you could talk a bit about how you've kind of stress tested the EHR related cost and revenue assumptions in the budget for next year, since this does seem to be an area where a small miss can have a large impact.
Excellent question. So I consider North Country to be the expert on EMR transformations. This will be our third EMR transformation in the last 10 years. I was fortunate enough to be the executive sponsor when we went to Athena. Athena to be approved to be an excellent implementation, an implementation that the organization and the vendor worked very closely on. Unfortunately, with Cerner, I don't think that was the case. They under-resourced, overpromised, and didn't deliver. With respect to what Ocean's doing for us on Epic, it's a time-tested process that they've gone through. We did a 1.5 year due diligence before we made the decision to go with Ocean and Epic. We visited Ocean Epic sites. We spoke to multiple CEOs of what to anticipate. In fact, Ocean's telling us that they don't believe we'll see any downturn and do not recommend that we reduce patient volumes during implementation. We're hedging our bet on this particular situation only because of history. They are proving right now to be an excellent partner. They have been on site. They are working with all our departments. The build is already 50% complete. It's just a matter of flipping the switch in April. There is no guarantee for anything, Member Holmes. I think, as you know, as I know as an accountant, your budget assumptions today change throughout the next 18 months. And so we've done our best to hedge our bets with respect to the additional expense or loss of revenue during implementation.
Okay. so it's actually possible that you may have underestimated NPR for next year.
Possible, but again, as an accountant, doubtful. I hedge my bets.
Okay. One of the, it sounds like you've added some primary care permanent clinicians to those practices, but one of the metrics of success that I read in the transformation plan related to the new EHR implementation was to have, and I think this was a quote, your primary care providers see 20 patients a day as they did prior to our current EHR. That led me to believe that the current Cerner actually prevented your primary care providers from seeing 20 patients a day. It's hard to tell from a spreadsheet if that's the correct interpretation, but can you speak to that a bit?
So I'll start and I'll let Tracy jump in if I screw it up. Prior to arriving, I think we were seeing 12 to 14 patients on average with the difficulties associated with the current EMR. The difficulty in use, the difficulty in finding information, looking up records, etc. It was causing a huge downturn in our ability for access to get patients in the door. Early on, we brought in Kaufman Hall to do a primary care analysis and a recommendation. They made some solid recommendations of what we could do to increase patients seen in a day, and we are currently able and ask and require our primary care folks to see 16 patients a day. We do believe once we're up and running, and this will be more for budget 28 than it is today, that we're going to be back to 20 to 24. That's what our providers want. They are, this isn't just a financial issue with our current EMR. This is a completely organizational dissatisfaction in our ability to take care of our patients. Trace, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think Tom covered all of it. That's exactly what's been going on. We called it the Cerner adjustment, kind of tongue in cheek, to go from 20 to 16 because our providers just could not see any more under the Cerner system, and they want to spend their time actually seeing their patients versus, dealing with all the barriers that exist in the Cerner system right now.
And as I said, one of the things that I realized when I came back is the fact that that implementation of that product was an absolute disaster for this organization and our community.
So, okay, so you're anticipating that probably won't hit until fiscal year 28, that bump up in clinical productivity.
There has to be a ramp up time for people to make the transition from, one of the other things we're doing this year is we're bringing in a change management company to help with that, because one of the biggest issues that I observed from a distance when I came back, because I was not involved in the CERN implementation, is that folks attempted to take Athena and put it into Cerner. That doesn't work. So what we're trying to do is make it very clear that this is a clean start. This is a fresh start. You can't do in Epic exactly the processes you do in Cerner. And so as part of change management, it's getting people prepared for that change so that when we go to Epic, it's a clean slate and then we're able to move forward in the future and getting access. Ultimately, it's about access for our patients. As Tracy mentioned, 99% of the primary care in this community is North Country Hospital. There isn't an FQHC in our community. It's us. And that's why when it comes to rural health care designation and looking under every rock to find revenue to support what we do, it's really truly about seeing the patients.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm sure your community does too. Can you talk about the assumption around a 0% rate increase for Medicare in the budget?
Anita, you want to speak to that, or do you want me to take a shot at it? So our cost report, when you reduced, we've taken a lot of expense out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take expense out of the system, that reduces the ability for cost reimbursement. And the way cost reimbursement works, and Dan, jump in on this one if I screw it up because I'm not a cost report expert, is that it's based on your rate of what you receive from Medicare. So if we're reducing expenses, there can't be an anticipation that we're going to see an increase in Medicare revenue. And our assumption is our percentage of Medicare, which has been steady for the last, I don't know how many years, that the best case scenario is that we stay at 0% of lack or not of, but basically status quo with Medicare reimbursement.
Okay.
So remember,
that was actually-
a dollar savings when you're a cost reimbursed hospital is not a dollar of savings. You also take a hit on Medicare reimbursement. Sorry.
No. That was what I assumed, but I wanted to get clarification on that. So, and the Rural Health Transformation Fund that allows the new grant, congratulations for that, that allows more telehealth, is that going to impact at all any of the reimbursements or revenue that you might anticipate in your budget?
Not in our budget. As Tracy stated, the big thing there is having the equipment and then having Epic come on board to be able to do more telehealth. So we're starting with pulmonology. We have a very receptive group at the University of Vermont Medical Center who wants to work with us on pulmonology, but we're also going to explore cardiology. We're going to explore other opportunities that exist for specialty services, because at the end of the day, those services probably aren't coming back to North Country Hospital. And we have to find our way for our patients to be seen, because as I stated earlier, a lot of our folks just can't or won't travel that far for service. So if we can make it easier for them to at least get preliminary care through telehealth services and have that relationship with one of the academics, then there's an opportunity for those folks to maybe get into them on an easier place. Right now, as an example, and I just found this out, if someone wants to make an appointment at Dartmouth for a cardiology service, it's a 6-month wait. If you want a neurology visit at Dartmouth, it's a 9-month wait. So it's incumbent on our hospital to find a way to at least have the basic services through telehealth for our community.
So, so is it the idea that you'll buy the equipment this year, wait for the Epic install, and then be able to provide those services at reimbursable amounts after all of that? I'm just trying to understand the timing of this.
So we're
because it
starting with
sounds like-
pulmonology.
Yep.
And chances are pulmonology will cost us more than our revenue, but we don't anticipate really being live with that until, I don't know, Trace, when would you think?
Well, there's two models there. So until we have Epic, we have to do a model where we kind of contract with UVM for the services, right? Because being on the two systems, we can't, it doesn't work. So basically, we would potentially like to get it up and running sooner if we can, but we would go on a kind of a temporary model where they would do the billing and all that, and we would just kind of contract for them to do the services. Or they contract back from us for the space and for the staff that we're using. And then once we're all on the same system, set it up as basically our program where we bill and, then we pay them for the physician time. So I'm thinking we're still working on that. That's the biggest piece that we're working at with UVM right now, is the timing and whether it's worthwhile to start the first way or to just wait until after we go live with Epic.
So
that's a decision point.
What we do in this organization when it comes to a physician, for instance, and let's consider this a physician, is we don't build revenue or expense into the budget unless we have a signed agreement. And we're looking at pulmonology the same way. Right now, we don't have a signed agreement. So to anticipate additional revenue or anticipate additional expense right now doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. So our goal right now is to lay the foundation for that and then be able to do it. Now the whole concept here is not to increase the expense to the system. The idea is to take what may be for the folks able to travel, take that out of the system by having them stay with us. So at minimum, it's a break even for the overall system.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that, and it sounds like a real benefit to the system. But as we're thinking about budgets, we need to understand where the revenue is landing. Is it landing on UVM's books? Is it landing on North Country's books? When does it happen? As we're approving NPR. So part of my questioning is trying to understand the timing, whose books it lands on, and and when and how much, because it sounds like you're anticipating a potential contract that might generate some revenue and some expenses, but it's not currently on your books. Is that so I'm, that's why I'm trying to understand the questions.
That is correct.
That is correct, and we haven't figured the timing out yet, right? Yes.
Okay. I as information unfolds, it'd be helpful to share with our team, as it's going forward.
So we do keep AHS completely informed on our hospital transformation work as well as our regional, and I believe that is public, but more than happy to share everything with you folks. And Member Holmes, we are, as I've said earlier to our staff, we're an open book. So we will answer any question, or we'll provide any information that you folks need.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, I've been asking every hospital how the transformation plans impact their budgets to try and see, what the work that you're doing with AHS, how does it translate into the work that we're doing? So any, additional information around revenue or cost to anticipated transformation activities in the next year will be really helpful to share with us if you haven't completely already. So I appreciate the open book. Let's keep it open. Speaking of open, and I guess this is I appreciate your invitation to ask anything. I would like to ask about the 1-star rating, down from 3 a few years ago, down to 2 in January, now 1. I tried to find the CMS quality report that we've asked all the hospitals to submit, but I didn't see yours and the materials that were submitted. If you haven't already, could you send that along to our team?
We absolutely will. So I'm going to start, and then I'll turn it over to Denise because she's got the detail, but this is all, so the 1-star information is basically information from fiscal year 21 through fiscal year 24. And unfortunately, as I described, that was a fairly dark time for North Country Hospital, not just financially, not just morale, not just from a quality perspective. We have opportunities and we recognize that. So Denise, why don't you talk specifically to what we're doing, and that we were a high one. I just want you to know we were a high one.
That's good to hear, Mr. Frank.
So there are 5 domains within the star rating, and we're going to focus on 3 of those. We had a 4-star rating in our patient experience, and we also did well in the 5th domain, which is timely and effective care measure. But we're going to focus on safety of care, mortality, and readmission. We saw those as opportunities for us and to deep dive. We reported those measures in general at committees, not diagnosis specific. And when we got the information back from CMS about the star rating, it was by diagnosis. So we have a comprehensive plan that we've implemented with structure to report up to include staff and physicians. So we're in the process of doing that now and looking at specifically mortality, readmissions, and then safety of care.
Wow. I appreciate that. I mean, the two measures that I was able to see from the publicly available data that were, I think, the most troubling were the death rates from heart failure and from pneumonia,
Right.
at least from the CMS reports. And so specifically, could you talk a bit about what you're doing for those 2 specific measures, to turn the ship around there? And I recognize maybe you've done some of this work already, because to your point, Mr. Frank, I know some of this data is older. So if you have, the other thing I would ask is if you have current information that's not available, publicly, but it tracks, the mortality rates at North Country since this data was published, please do share that. That would be helpful. I recognize some of this data is lagged, but specifically, I'd love to hear about what efforts are undertaken to address those and any updated information or data around those mortality rates.
So specifically to pneumonia, because we recognize that was an opportunity. We created a multidisciplinary group to look at, what we saw was our opportunities were with aspiration pneumonia. So primarily our older population, often coming from a nursing facility. So we involved speech therapy, our dietitian, pharmacy, and then the staff on the progressive care unit. We looked at meds, we looked at what diet restrictions they had. We did bedside swallow screening to be sure that they were on the right consistency of meds and of liquids. And then we have been monitoring, and that has improved. Our pneumonia rates have improved.
Great. Any follow-up information you want to share with the board would be most appreciated on that.
Okay.
I just have two more questions, I think. And one's just a clarifying question, but I was looking at the visit and referral lag data. And I was just, for cardiology, there were 13 referrals and no appointments scheduled within 3 days. But for radiology, there were 525 referrals and 100% were scheduled within 3 days. So I was trying to understand how that happened, if you have different scheduling systems, or is there some inaccuracy there and how it was recorded, something else going on there. Just struck me that, to have 0, referrals scheduled for one unit and 500 for another.
So this is position specific. As you know from the data, most of our positions are incredibly productive from an access perspective. We have one cardiologist employed who sees really no more than 10 patients a day. He is an individual, I guess I call it old school. He doesn't utilize the system the way it needs to be utilized, and he spends a great deal of time individually with his patients. Now, to his credit, we have the oldest population and a very sick population. So it's not a 10-minute visit when it comes to seeing our cardiologist. He spends an incredible amount of time. And if you heard me mention that we're now also looking at telecardiology to take a little burden off him and to increase the ability of folks to get in and be seen one way or another. Not a great answer, but it's the truth.
I appreciate that. Always appreciate the truth, Mr. Frank.
And we always like to give it.
I guess my last question is, and this is related to our statutory obligations, we do have to look at executive comp, and I'm wondering, the performance metrics that drove or are driving the CEO, I guess, to you, Mr. Frank, the rather sizable variable comp expected for this year. Is it financial, operational, quality, strategic? What are the factors impacting the variable comp for this year, and actually for next year too, but.
So pretty much everything you mentioned. We have a 2-page sheet of what requirements are necessary for any bonus at all to quote unquote kick in. We've built in a buffer for next year in case that's to happen. When our board, created the salary structure, they look at market. And part of market is not just base, but total compensation. And so from the board's perspective, that you receive a base, and if you do what's necessary and you do the job and you do it well, there is an opportunity for a bonus. I know that my base and bonus combined do not necessarily equal some base that exists for a lot of other CEOs in the state, but it is a way to provide a variable comp for someone who does a good job.
It would be helpful to see the weighting of, you mentioned just financial, operational, quality. It'd be helpful to see the weighting of that. That'd be great.
We can send you that sheet for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are my questions, Chair Foster. And thank you for the candid answers today.
Thank you. Member Walsh.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, and thank you for the presentation. You can see a lot of the hard work that you've been doing the past few years starting to pay off. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the expense discipline that you've brought to all that you're doing. I just have a couple questions. You've had $4 million for the Epic implementation. That's noted as a one-time cost. I understand that the implementation is temporary, but Epic itself is not over time. And so I'm wondering exactly what goes away and what continues into the cost base as you go forward with the new system.
So the 4 million is the amount of what it's costing us for the actual physical implementation of the system. The annual fee, which we know up front, we have a signed contract, is $2.5 million per year for the modules that we've chosen. So everything is based on a module, based on the services we provide. Currently, it's the same type of system with our current EMR. It's based on modules. So our current expense for that is 1.8 million. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what the original cost was for the implementation of Cerner, but each system comes with an implementation cost. So yes, that 4 million theoretically does go away. It doesn't carry on. It's the annual 2.5 million. And as I stated earlier, as soon as we flip the switch for the 2.5, the clock starts running there. The 1.8 goes away. Then as we progress, the ability for us to utilize the Epic revenue cycle, which is one of the top revenue cycle programs of EMRs, the 2 million, in addition to the 1.8 that we're paying for the outside biller, that will also go away. So over the next several years, we anticipate seeing in excess of $1 million savings compared to what we're paying today between our EMR and our outside billing.
So that's a potential future savings of $1 million over how many years do you figure?
Well, every year that we don't utilize an outside billing company, that will be perpetual.
So a lasting savings
Yes,
of
sir.
about $1 million a year.
Yes, sir. And if there are additional services and we have to buy additional modules, then obviously the cost is variable. It's the same with our current EMR. I think when we started, we were about 1.4, 1.5, and we're at 1.8 because of additional things we needed to purchase.
Great. You spoke and NVRH did earlier about the collaboration that's going on between the two. And I understand and believe that collaboration can lower cost and improve access. What costs do you expect will go away at North Country or will be avoided through this collaboration? What's the first place where you expect to see a lasting savings?
Back office functions. Right off the bat, with a combined pharmacy director for the two hospitals, there are significant savings there. I don't want to say exactly how much because I don't want to get it wrong. But there are significant savings. We are exploring other back office functions right now. We're looking at potentially signing an agreement to do that. We've already begun those conversations. So, through attrition, if there are opportunities where we can work together and have one vice president or one senior director over a particular area, that's early on where we see the biggest opportunity for savings. And since we've already proved it in the current situation with just one employee, over time, we can see that multiplying.
Yeah. Great. I appreciate that answer. Very good answer. Helping us monitor that over time would be very helpful. We hear a lot and read a lot about the savings that can come from collaboration. But more often we've seen increasing expense for just layers of administration over the existing layers at affiliates. So helping us bring some transparency to how you're doing things would actually help us understand more opportunities that might exist across the state.
So, we're all about administrative efficiency. We are lean. Everyone that sits at this table has taken on multiple responsibilities as we've eliminated those 16 positions. That is the goal, is if we're going to combine a back office function, there's not going to be additional layers of administration. Otherwise, as you say, remember, well, we're not going to see the savings. You know, in addition to not just the salary savings that we're experiencing now with the combined pharmacy director, Max has brought his expertise to our hospital and has gone through every contract, has gone through every opportunity that exists to reduce cost. And that's already paying benefit for us. So in the current budget, there are expense savings associated with changes or reductions in contracts that exist. So it's not just the person, it's also the expertise of what can be brought to the table.
Right. Yep, I understand. And I believe collaboration and regionalization, systems, networks, they can be beneficial, but they're not always. And so I'm interested in seeing how you all go about it. I think there's a lot of promise for you. I also want to give credit where credit's due about your community benefit. The numbers that you sent in your presentation, I looked into those some more. The subsidized health services, you're at 7.08%, and the state average is about 3.02. And financial assistance, you're at 1.16, and the state average is 0.65. So there's a lot of good going on. The number that was most striking, however, was your presentation had a community benefit of 24.19%. But then, as you talked about earlier, and Member Merman talked about with NVRH, there's the Medicaid shortfall issue. And if from what you have in your slides, that's about 15.67 percentage points. So if we subtract that from the 24, we're left with a community benefit without the Medicaid shortfall of about 8.52% at North Country. The Vermont average is 4.23, so you're well above. But I'm wondering if you could help us understand that Medicaid may pay less for the cost of caring for patients, and it's a real financial pressure. But how should we think about a reported cost for participating with Medicaid in the same way that we think about how a hospital directs financial assistance or subsidized health services or other community programs? How should we think about these things on a community benefit level? I'll be honest, I struggle with the Medicaid shortfall being the same thing as the financial assistance or subsidized health services.
So that's a big question, but I think every hospital in the state takes that in consideration when they look at community benefit. And we have the highest Medicaid population in the state of Vermont. I'll just give you a couple of facts on Medicaid real quick, especially when it comes to our provider tax. Every year, or since 2010, we have paid $70 million as a hospital into the provider tax, which is used to draw down Medicaid dollars. What comes back to us in addition payment over those 10 years was $20 million. That means $50 million has gone elsewhere, not a direct link back to the hospital. In 2010, we received 60% of our provider tax back to us in a dish payment. This year, it's less than 10%. So in 2010, our provider tax was $2.5 million. This year, it's $6.5 million. So however you want to classify it, from my perspective, is there is benefit that we are providing to the community through receiving less Medicaid funding for the service we provide to a heavy Medicaid population. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but yeah. I mean, that's the way we look at it. Remember, we're completely insurance agnostic here. We have no idea what someone has when they walk in the door. But you know, I'm quoting facts.
Yeah. Thank you for the answer. And again, I want to give credit where credit's due. You're doing typically more than twice the community benefit of Vermont, of other Vermont hospitals. But this issue with Medicaid shortfall, it seems that it's sometimes it's counted by all hospitals as community benefit. It's cited as a reason that commercial payers have to pay more for their coverage. And it's cited as evidence that a hospital earns its tax exemption. So it seems to be doing a lot of work. And I struggle with how to think of that in relation to financial assistance, subsidized health services, and other community programs. And when we subtract out the Medicaid shortfall, the amount of community benefit that persists across the state is quite low. Your organization happens to do better than most in the state, but as a state, it's quite low. And I'm trying to figure out how to think about that. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And those are all the questions that I have. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Teachout or Merman?
I'll go. I had a couple clarifying questions. I wanted to ask about the 25% reduction in revenue you assumed for the implementation over those 3 months for the EMR. Is that also at the Express Care?
So if you're we don't have Express Care. We have
Okay.
we have a relationship, believe it or not, with the RFQHC for an urgent care in downtown Newport, but we don't anticipate any impact there at all. You know, this is mainly our primary care area. So we don't necessarily see an upturn in other places because we triage our patients in primary care. So if it's someone that needs to be seen, we will see them regardless of the downturn. You know, the patients that we anticipate that we may not see during that period are people who might have an annual visit or biannual visit. So we're going to be very judicious about how we look at triaging the patients who may not get in as quick as normal in primary care.
Okay. And will you be reducing scheduled visits over that period of time? Is that what you're telling me? I think.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Sorry,
that's
long
helpful.
answer, I guess, for a short question.
So if you're reducing your schedule, then it's pretty much certain that that's the amount of revenue you'll lose because you just won't have scheduled a quarter of the time slots that you normally have.
Correct.
Okay. I wanted to jump to the pharmacy. Have you experienced some of the substantial pharmaceutical, high cost drugs that other hospitals have?
So we definitely have high cost drugs, but our infusion center does not necessarily do what some other hospitals do. We've had situations where we have made very difficult decisions on very high cost drugs that we've told the patient, I'm sorry, you need to go here or you need to go there. We just can't provide that drug. And that's mainly in the infusion center. Correct me if I'm wrong, Denise. And so we've made those very difficult decisions. We don't do chemo. We don't do any of the cancer-related infusions here. So we do. I mean, drugs are expensive. They're stupid expensive. But I would say we don't experience the same thing, for instance, as an NBRH does, because they do have cancer physicians that come from Dartmouth and will do those infusions there, some infusions, which we do not do here.
Okay, that's helpful. It's helpful for me to understand what's different. The next question was about your, it's on page 2 and it's where you're talking about your prices and your plans to, and this is what I think it says, help realign your charge master. So I guess I'm not sure on what you plan on doing in FY27. Are you realigning your entire charge master or are you only negotiating a different arrangement through contract with Blue Cross?
So it's a combination of both. You know, they've made a proposal to us for all of our outpatient to go on a fee schedule, which we're thinking seriously about. As long as, I'll be honest, we can continue to have the annual meeting so we don't have a situation on a fee schedule what happened on the professional side. You know, they brought to light to us that we have some charges that are way too low. And so the combination of our highest charges, which is like most hospitals in the state, radiology and lab, is the idea is to bring those charges down gradually over a period of time and bring some low ones up a bit to try to offset that loss of revenue.
Okay, so then the second piece you were just talking about, adjusting very high charges and very low charges. Do you plan to do that with all payers, including Medicare, or are you really still focused only on doing that with Blue Cross?
No, that'll be our charge master.
Okay,
So we only have one charge master. So whatever adjustments we make, it will be made across the board.
right. So those adjustments would help Medicare patients who may have high co-insurance charges.
Heavy users of diagnostic imaging, because on the lab side, clinically required labs are actually fully reimbursed by Medicare. So there are some labs that don't require co-insurance.
Okay. All right. Because, and I'm just asking these because, you know, as you stated, the population you serve is the oldest, sickest, and most financially challenged population. I know that's true for you. And your hospital, either in your ranking or in the information that we have, is perhaps one of the third highest charge hospitals in the state. Having that in the lowest, you know, most financially challenged region of the state is a mismatch that doesn't work very well for the population that you're serving. So that's the concern that I have. But it sounds like you're working on that.
It's a reasonable concern. And, you know, when you look at, so not every critical access hospital in the state is created equal. You know, NVRH and North Country have the most challenging payer mixes. Unfortunately, there was that thing called a cost shift that did exist. You know that well from your time at Blue Cross. You know, we're not an orthopedic hub. We're not a critical access that sits in an affluent community. We have real challenges, and yes, you know, our charges are going to be higher than some other hospitals, and a lot of it has to do with payer mix. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We would go away.
Yep, I understand, and I hope Medicaid helps with some of the issues here. I think that those were all the questions that hadn't been asked by others that I had. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Member Berman.
Great, thank you. All right, I have a bunch of questions. I'm just going to start with this Medicare cost sharing issue that I think we've talked about, and I think Dan Bennett provided a lot of information on that. I guess I have a few questions for you to start with on it. So first of all, I think one of the challenges, at least for me, looking at North Country, or what challenge that you have for your community, is that at least looking at the cost report data on that, the Medicare cost sharing percentage is the highest for North Country of any hospital in the state. I believe it was 69% for outpatient cost sharing, with the state average of 47%, the national average around 47%. I want to sort of dig into this a little bit. When we look at the Medicare revenue on the worksheets, does that include the payments from secondary payers, or are those payments reported in commercial and Medicaid?
But when a patient comes in as Medicare and they have a supplemental, that revenue is considered Medicare. It stays Medicare.
Okay.
Otherwise, you would see our Medicare payer mix be 10%.
That makes sense to me.
And can I ask a
Um,
quick question, Dr. Merman,
yeah.
on the national averages? So that those national averages would include critical access, PPS, and academic
That's
medical
just
centers? Is that
only
is
critical
that
access hospitals.
just critical access? Thank you.
Yeah. PPS hospitals have that fixed cost sharing of
Yep.
20%, which, like, when you look at the national averages, is more about 18% for outpatient for various reasons that it comes down a little bit. Okay, is there a way that you could provide the board the secondary, the payments that are for Medicare cost sharing payments by the secondary payer? So how much is from commercial, meaning Medigap plans, how much comes from Medicaid, and how much is self-pay? Is that something that you can pull out?
I can try. I will tell you that, I mean, you just quoted that our cost share was
67%,
60 something percent.
67.
What Medicare recipients actually pay is about 9.5%. So when you take out what our, what our financial aid and what our bad debt, other programs like Quimby that I noted, it's actually 9% is what their responsibility is, not. So
Right,
I
but many
just
of
want to
the,
state that because that's
yeah,
a heck of a
I
lot
totally
different than
appreciate.
64.
Yeah, 69, I think, is what it was. But I think that also includes that a lot of people then end up buying insurance to cover that risk, right? They buy a Medigap plan. And so that Medigap plan is them paying additional money to cover that. And some of what's driving up Medigap plan prices are high copays. So does that 9% include what's coming from their secondary payer if they have if they pay for extra money out of their own pocket to cover that expense with a Medigap plan?
That's the patient responsibility for people who don't have a Medigap.
Or don't have so then patients are paying for those Medigap plans in addition. So they have to, that's still coming out of the community spend. The Medigap plans my understanding is the plans are regional within a state or sub-state region. So that the plan price is going to be driven by the spending of those people.
So you're asking for the amount of payment we receive from Medigap plans, including Medicaid.
I'd love if Medicaid could be broken out separately, that would be helpful.
So I will say that may be a manual process on our part. This is one of the limiting factors of our current EMR is being able to pull information out of the system. So that may take a bit, but we will work on that for you.
Okay.
Do
you know, roughly speaking, what percentage of your Medicare fee-for-service beneficiaries that receive services there, or roughly what percentage of the services provided have Medicaid as a secondary payer?
I can get that for you. I don't know off the top of my head. I do have that number, I think, pretty readily available though.
Okay. I think one of the concerns that I had looking at your data on this too is that, given that you kind of flip the ratio, and so instead of being 69%, I think that it would basically mean that your charges are roughly 428 or 430. I can't remember. I looked at this a while ago. Percent of your cost-based payments, and so I think that gets this concern that if you have an average of like 430%, there's probably some, as Mr. Franks mentioned, that are pretty low, and that there's some that are probably well over 500% of that cost-based payment. And in those, the Medigap or Medicaid is paying the entire amount, and then the Medicare is chipping in nothing on those. So I think that I think there's a lot of concern about those really high outlier prices, this high outlier charges, and how it sets up this cost-sharing arrangement. So just since we were talking about Medicaid and we were talking about the provider tax, I guess the question is, do you know how Medicaid is funded in Vermont? Do you know how the state contribution to Medicaid, what the revenue source is for that?
My understanding from what I gather is the state needs to match bringing down Medicaid dollars in order to get those dollars into the state of Vermont.
Yeah. So I don't live in the details of this, but my understanding is the majority of our funding to get matched comes from the provider tax. So the provider
is
tax
correct.
goes to get matched, and then that gets federal matching, and then that Medicaid money then goes back to pay for Medicaid services. And I think you mentioned that North Country has a high percentage of Medicaid patients.
Correct.
So okay. So when I think about that, I would think, well, North Country is probably actually, they're paying in their provider tax, but because you have a disproportionately large amount of Medicaid patients, you're probably getting a disproportionately large amount of money back from Medicaid payments.
So this is a really big conversation because as the state of Vermont expanded Medicaid but didn't draw any more dollars down from Medicaid, then we're seeing more Medicaid patients that were once commercial that we're not getting any more dollars for.
That's a whole other thing. But when you're talking about the amount of money that you get back from your provider tax, it's not just the DISH payment, it's also the Medicaid payments, and it's also the Medicaid cost sharing. So I think I just think credit should be given that there's not just that you pay this X amount into provider tax and you only get this very small amount back in DISH payments. You also get Medicaid payments, you get Medicaid cost sharing payments. So those are all funded through matching funds from that provider tax. So it's a way that the state, whether we can say this is the right way to do it or not, it's just the way that it's occurring. And the feds have said that, they're going to do it less, right? Because they're going to decrease the provider tax. So we have to figure out another way through taxes to increase those Medicaid payments. But it just to sort of like, I feel like there was a little bit of I feel like we weren't fully explaining that all of the money that goes into provider tax is not just coming back in DISH payments. There's all these other ways it comes back. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
All right, Dan.
But I appreciate the comment, but that also means that our Medicaid shortfall is double what it is on average in other hospitals, which was shown on the 990 data. So while we are getting, we do have a larger percentage of Medicaid, that means that for every patient coming in, we're having more of a loss than the other hospitals. So,
and I totally, you have a large Medicaid percentage. There's a bunch that do, and you're definitely one of the ones that is on the high end of that. But I just think that, I just want to clarify there's a lot more going on than just the DISH payment. Okay, so some specific things. I see a proportionally, although not huge, expense growth on your nuclear medicine costs in the expense worksheet, but a pretty flat PET CT revenue and volume. What's driving the expense increases in the PET CT and the nuke med where you don't have much volume growth?
Okay, so PET and CT scan are the two ones you're looking at?
It was the nuke med. I assume you have a PET CT, or is it just nuclear medicine?
Yes. Well, we have basically what we have a PET trailer that comes a certain times a month on a Saturday, and we see patients through that trailer per se. We don't have a PET service of our own here at North Country. I think the increasing.
I'm sorry.
Oh, damn. The increase in cost, sorry, I got distracted there for a second. The increase in cost in the PET has to do with, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. I'm gonna have to look at that. I don't remember that detail right now. I'm sorry. I thought I was gonna come up with it, but I'll have to look at that for you, sir. Yes.
But it's basically just like a contracted service out.
Yes,
You have
that's
someone
exactly
come in,
what it is.
provide
They
the
come
PET
up,
services.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It's not a huge total dollar amount, but it was just a really large percentage increase.
Yeah.
Okay, one other thing, and we've had several conversations this summer about this, and I don't want to. I heard a comment recently that productivity is for computers and effectiveness is for humans, but that sort of all that aside, we have been looking at productivity through RVU numbers, and I didn't see any RVU numbers for your hospitalists, for your anesthesia providers and your emergency providers. And I was wondering if you could just provide those in supplemental information so we can sort of just have complete data.
And just so you know, those particular group of physicians are not paid on RVUs. They're paid on base salaries.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of hospitals have that similar arrangement.
Yes, and also the majority of the work that anesthesiologists do not have RVUs assigned to them. So I'll give you what is assigned to them, but there's not a lot of their work that's not having RVUs related to it. But yes, we can get those for sure.
And this gets into the challenge of how we measure effectiveness, right? And productivity and all of these things. So,
Right.
all right. And I just want to confirm, so all of your clinics are rural health clinics?
Not all of them.
No.
We have, like I mentioned, we have our 2 primary cares,
So
our OB.
all the primary care clinics are rural health clinics?
Yes,
Okay.
all our
All right.
primary cares, including OBGYN and pediatrics, yes.
Okay, and then my understanding is the rural health clinics have the same bizarre Medicare cost sharing relationship as the critical access hospitals. They're the 2 carve-outs that have this charge-based cost sharing. Is there any, I guess, are you aware of that? And 2, does that affect how you set charges within the rural health clinics?
So no, it doesn't affect how we set our charges. We actually haven't we haven't changed our charges in our medical group as a whole, including the rural health clinics, for a very long time. We get paid per visit for Medicaid and Medicare, based on our cost report for Medicare and Medicaid. I'm not quite sure about the other part of your first question to answer that.
So our charges on the clinic side, on the professional side, have not increased.
Right.
And that is one of the things that have driven the inpatient charges so much, is when we do get a fee increase, we don't put any fee increase on that side of the house, because it would just simply be written off, because the fee schedule that we received from Blue Cross hasn't changed in years.
The slide that you put up with the charges from Blue Cross, that was from Blue Cross? Is that
Yes.
An average of your charge master, or is that are those related to the billed charges?
Those would be bill charges. Yeah, those are everything that we would have charged out. That's exactly what that would have been.
Okay. Because that looks much more favorable for you than some of the other data sets that I've seen. With the RAND data for outpatient, you're the highest in New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. And
we've looked at the RAND data, and that data actually shows us as having over 80% Medicare and Medicaid. And I think there's an expectation that we're going to go up to 750% of Medicare, but we haven't asked for a fee increase of more than whatever in the last few years. So, yeah, it's.
Because the charge price question was going to get into, this is sort of like a bigger conversation, I guess, but, and I don't know if it's really the conversation to have here, but I would love to sort of maybe think about this over long term. Is there some data from health economists looking at the impact of price increases on job loss? And I think housing instability as well. And while your prices haven't increased much recently, they look pretty high to start with, and you've got a very high unemployment rate in your community. And so I was trying to think about, how do we balance prices with access and unemployment, and the idea of the stability of your hospital, which is the largest employer, but we don't want to suck all the employment out of the community into your hospital, because it's too expensive for the employers to provide benefits to their employees. So it's just I don't know. I don't really know if this is the right forum to have the conversation, but I think we should have this conversation, over time.
There's a lot there, Member Merman. That's a multi-day conversation.
Yes, and probably with very little solution that's going to impact in the immediate future, but we need to work towards it. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I was aware of the suicide of the emergency provider. I think I'm an emergency physician, and I was at the end of a shift one night, and a colleague told me about it, and I did not know him, and my heart goes to your community and his family and his community, to everyone there. It's emergency medicine in Vermont is actually a community as well. I know several people who have worked up there over the years, currently work up there, and I work with people who previously worked up there. And I think it's shocked us all, and and it's hard. I think a lot of us in our field are struggling with kind of the expectations that we have upon us of what we can provide as services, and the hours and the nights and the dysregulation that it impacts and how hard that is on your body. Anecdotally, I've heard from a lot of people, several people, I wouldn't say a lot of people, there aren't a lot of people that I would say they interact with, but that they've appreciated working at North Country Hospital in the emergency department. They felt well supported there. They feel that they have a strong community to work with there. So my heart goes out to y'all and your community and hit family and friends, and that we do care very much about the health of our provider community, of all the healthcare workers, of the communities we work in, and we're trying to, continually just work towards a healthier place to work and a more sustainable system. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple quick little questions. When North Country Hospital changes its charge master and increases the charge master, can you walk me through that process?
So it's reform. Dan, do you want to take a shot? You're working with that outside group and Blue Cross.
Well, are you referring to in general if there's a charge increase or a charge decrease, or you mean specifically in terms of what Tom was talking about earlier?
Yeah, well, in some of the language, I think we use different language in connection with this. I think Tom used the term fee increase. People use rate increase, charge master increase, reduction, discount off charges. What I'm talking about is the actual charge master itself having increases to particular services that are provided. And I want to understand the process by which that happens. So,
I mean, there's a number of different ways you could do it. You could do an across the board change to your charge master, whereby every code, every CPT code that you have in there, or HCPCS code that has a charge associated with it, would go up a particular percent, 1%, 2%, or whatever, or down 1% or 2%. You also could take a different approach and say that your charges are high, let's just say for sake of argument, in radiology and lab, and you would choose codes that are in those areas, and you could just adjust those codes themselves. So it really just depends on the strategy you have, the process you have to put that in place. But and I think the board understands this, and we discussed it in the comments earlier. When we make a change to the charge master, when a charge changes, that applies to any payer, whether it's a self-pay person, it's Blue Cross, it's Medicare, it's Medicaid, whoever. They all are charged the same amount.
So when we look at particular charges that are quite high relative to Medicare, relative to Medicare at North Country, I'm trying to understand, how did those outliers come to be?
So I will happily take a shot at that. I go back to our situation with our Blue Cross folks, where we have a fee schedule. And the idea is when we receive an approved increase, that we can spread that evenly across all of our services or all of our areas, professional, non-professional, or hospital-based. And what's happened is, since we haven't had a fee increase from Blue Cross, anytime we've received an increase, we've put it on to radiology and lab. And, part of that is the fact that putting it on professional would simply be written off. Part of it is we don't have the internal expertise on an annual basis to take that charge master and sort of redefine it based on the increases we get. And that's why we're spending $75,000 this year to bring in a professional group to help us do the work that honestly we don't have the people to do. That's sort of the long and short version of what
Okay.
we're trying to accomplish.
I think I understand. Let me try and repeat it back to make sure I do have it right. There are some services that are extreme outliers like radiology and lab and some others at North Country Hospital. And generally over time, you've increased the rates across the board, except in certain areas you weren't able to get that rate increase to be applied. And so you applied more in certain other areas. Is that a generally accurate way to
Basically,
describe
that's
it?
it. I mean, you know, if over 8 years, when we receive, you know, when we have a change in our fee increase, we could put more on professional, those charges wouldn't be as high. And I'll even go down the road a little bit, Chair Foster, you and I have had this conversation. What happens if we had an increase in Medicaid reimbursement? What would that have done to our charge master? Would we have to have had or asked for fee increases over the years to the amount that we have? And then it's the cost share, it's the whole, everything put together. This doesn't happen overnight. I mean, this has happened over the last 8 to 10, maybe more years. And it's something that, you know, we recognize, and we're trying to do our best to come up with a solution that's best for everybody, including our patients, community, and hospital.
So I would just state as well, there have been some years, and particularly recent years, where the Green Mountain Care Board has restricted doing what you noted, Chair Foster, in increasing it more in other areas. And when there's been restrictions for that, obviously we have not done it in that methodology.
And I will add one other thing, Chair Foster, if I could. Over the last 4 budgets, our average fee increase is 1.67%. So, you know, we're trying to adjust our charge master to be more appropriate, but at the same time, we're not trying to add more expense to the system.
Right, understood. And can you describe the process, if any, to evaluate the cost basis of a service in connection with increasing the charge master for that service?
From a cost accounting perspective or from a bottom line perspective?
So we do that when we're adding, if we're adding a new service or a new charge, we are looking at the cost of providing that. Some of these charges have been in the system for forever. So to go back to 1994 to evaluate the cost that was established then, I mean, that's, you know, that's sort of the bad situation that hospitals are in. Some of these charges go back to the beginning of, you know, modern healthcare, if you will. But we do that when we are looking at a new charge. The group that Tom noted that we're working with on our charge master, they also provide us with a tool that we can look at to understand what the Medicare reimbursement is for that service, and also what the national average is, those sort of things. So we can benchmark that. And I would say as we're adding charges and we have new services, they better approximate the cost of providing those services.
Okay, but I take it that that process doesn't occur when you're increasing pre-existing services.
We would not have the time nor the resources to do that internally.
Understood. Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you all for your comments and answering the board's questions today, and for making yourselves available for the hearing. And we appreciate the testimony and the opening comments very much. I'll turn to the healthcare advocate.
Oh, good afternoon. I think really just one question. Thank you all for all the questions and the responses so far. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you look at service lines and which ones are revenue positive versus negative. And particularly, I'm interested in how you think about, we've talked about this before in the last year, I believe, about how you assess labor and delivery, pediatrics, and the birthing center.
So, I mean, we look at history. I mean, we look at what our expenses are, what our revenue or anticipated revenue is, and we come up with a quote unquote mini business plan or bottom line. When we take a look at OB, for instance, and we look at all the expenses associated with the different areas that we need in order to maintain an OB program, And we look at what we receive for revenue, again, heavy, 65% of our births are Medicaid. We see that that is what we would call a loss leader, if that makes sense to you.
Yep.
But it's a service that we've determined that we need to provide for this community, and we will continue to provide it, and we do our best to minimize the loss that we sustain in that area from a financial perspective. We're not GM, so we're not, Oldsmobile was losing money. We can't shut down the Oldsmobile plant. Our goal is to stay away from clinical services. And when I talk about the 16 positions that we've eliminated, that's all administration. None of that is clinical.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably surmise why I'm asking. I mean, there are other hospitals that are looking at closing or reducing those service lines. So I was curious why you chose to not do it. And I think what I'm hearing, if I can paraphrase, and you can let me know if I get this wrong or not, you view it as an essential service that the community deserves. Is that fair to say?
Based on our location and the ability for our patients to get to another facility in a timely fashion to deliver a child, it's a service that we absolutely need to have here at North Country Hospital.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. And I'll open it to public comment. Yeah, raise the hand, and I see John Morley's hand is raised. Mr. Morley, Senator Morley.
Yeah. Hi, Chair Foster. I sit on the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, and didn't know anything about healthcare, and I'm learning, and it's very complicated, as everyone knows. I'm first of all, my hat off to Tom and his team on what I've learned that they've been able to accomplish up there at Newport, and they're not in my district, but everyone around here goes to them, and it's critically important what they provide and the services that they provide. And I think he has shown through his presentation today how strong Newport really is, and I'm very proud of that. One thing I'd like to ask is, if we do start cutting more costs, where would North Country Hospital cut costs going forward?
Is that a question I can answer?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I hope it is.
Well, I'm not sure if
Yes,
I'm allowed
please.
to. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, yeah, please.
The ability to reduce costs at this point from an administrative perspective is pretty much nil. It really would then have to look at clinical services.
So less services provided, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Black.
Okay, there we go. Takes a minute to get unmuted and all. I wanted to thank the team at North Country. I think I just wanted to make a comment specifically that I'm deeply concerned about particularly with North Country's payer mix and how the team at North Country is planning for the future. I know that you spoke about the provider tax in detail, and we are facing, obviously, as we know, the federal government has limited our ability and to collect provider tax. Provider tax collected goes to the general fund. We take those general fund dollars. We then put them into paying for Medicaid services that we can match up. I mean, we're looking at the possibility of our only options if we're not collecting that provider tax are we either cut services drastically, cut services that are covered. In addition, the only other option is to cut Medicaid rates. And I know that you mentioned that, you haven't had significant rate increases from Medicaid. And that is because it takes general fund dollars, and we are going to be losing general fund dollars. And I'm very deeply concerned about North Country with their high payer mix. because as we have learned, we can no longer cost shift onto the commercial rates and the commercial rate increases. And additionally, I'm very, very deeply concerned for members of your community and with the cost shift or cost share with Medicare, that your community is actually paying the highest cost share of any other critical access hospital in the state. And that is only achieved by lowering your prices if we're to get that down. So I want to put those concerns out there. I also wanted to make mention, I had the opportunity to reread the Wyman report recently, and I know that one of the recommendations for North Country was to sort of merge and become a regional health hospital area with NBRH. And I guess I haven't really heard much about that since that recommendation was made. And I know that you have combined some clinical services and you have some sharing and maybe some administrative support. But I was sort of wondering, you know, as you think about your future, particularly with Medicaid cuts that are coming, whether or not that is things that you're thinking about in possibly merging to be a health service area. So anyways, those are my public comments. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Chair Black, for attending and for your comments. I'll give Mr. Frank and your team an opportunity to respond to the comment if you'd like, and if you don't have a response, that's fine as well.
I think at this point, I'd rather not.
Great. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we can take a recess. Our next hearing is at 2:45, Copley Hospital. So Mr. Frank and your team, thanks for coming and have a nice afternoon. And we'll recess till 2:45. 2:45. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.